Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Geek Out Loud video. I'm realizing I need to give myself more time to do an intro here. This is Marvel Universe cards. This is from way back in 1990. So 30 years ago this year, these were released. It was a time where the card industry was starting to kind of hit a big boom in the same way the comic book industry was. It was an interesting time. I don't know if cards got real big because of the old Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card out of Upper Deck or what, but these cards came to us courtesy of a company called Impel, which would later be Skybox, and Marvel would cut a deal with them, and you had different artists working on these things like Arthur Adams, Tom Morgan, John Romita, Walt Simonson, Transformers man himself, Bob Budiansky, took point on this, and these cards were really neat. This was something that I had never even thought of, being a comic collector at the time and getting into baseball cards, particularly around 1990. These things were a big deal to me. So it's going to be fun to open them up. They have a hologram card, the kind of chase thing that you look for, but there was a lot of neat things. And by today's standards, these may be a little lackluster, but man, in 1990 it was just so cool to get some of our favorite superheroes on cards. And being a Marvel guy at the time, a Marvel kid, I was super stoked. What is going on with the Punisher's forehead? Holy my Lanta. What in the world? He was big. But they would do things like this. They had your heroes, your villains. They had famous battles. And on the back, it would give you all types of information about when they first met up. It would tell you a little bit of backstory about the battle and that sort of thing. And on the individual cards, what you'd have on the back are your stats for the person, their vital signs, age, weight, height, all that stuff, their powers, and they even had a win-loss percentage there, as you can see here. Come to find out, that was kind of, for this first set, was kind of made up. And it wasn't until later sets that they actually would really dig into that. Dark Phoenix, famous battle. Now, here's something interesting. See, the Punisher was huge, and so you had not only the Punisher card with the five-head Frank Castle, but then you had one simply for the Punisher's battle van, and because that's how big a deal he was. Another thing they would do informationally is, here your most valuable comics cards. These were just pictures of basically some comics that were huge. They were valuable. Loved the Fantastic Four, so it's good to see Human Torch in there. Spider-Man versus Hobgoblin. These are like, here's the thing. I should really take my time and just talk about all of these things. That's a Walt Simonson Fantastic Four. That's one of the very few cards I'm very certain about who actually did the art. They didn't really sign. They'd have to kind of sneak in secret signatures on these things, but they made a lot of money apparently doing these cards, did the artist. So they apparently really enjoyed doing them. I loved getting these things. This was just so much fun. And all of these, of this set, this was like classic Marvel humor here. There was a subset of Spider-Man interviewing different people in the Marvel universe. And there'd be like just the cheesy punchlines. Doc, can you pull a rabbit out of a hat? And of course, he's projecting his astral form, says, hey, I'm good, but not that good. We'll revisit this concept later with Dr. Doom. Other things I've learned in doing this: I need a decent tripod. I need a better recording setup if I'm going to video some things. And I got to do something to get my hands out of the frame. I got some ugly old meat hooks there, don't I? First appearance of Punisher here in this amazing Spider-Man issue. That's why it's the most valuable comic. Power Man, aka nowadays just Luke Cage. Now, the other thing they did that was really neat in this first set, I don't know if they continued in the second set, but rookies. And so your 1990, you had rookie cards, and this was Nomad. You find out a little bit. Look at this. Arch enemies, all those who would undermine America's values. Now, his first appearance was Captain America back in 1983, but this was his first year taking on the persona of Nomad. So I believe this is the same guy that would be U.S. Agent. I'm not sure. Don't hold me to that. Several people actually took on the persona of Nomad over the course of the 90s. I believe Rick Jones might have even done that. The Incredible Nightcrawler. When I was in the Munich circus, they called me the Incredible Nightcrawler. The Avengers of 1990, ladies and gentlemen. It's really interesting to see who was here. The guy on the right hand side who looks like Iceman is actually Vision, but you've got Thor. The lady in green is Cersei. You got Captain America, Quasar, and then She-Hulk. And I'd love to talk about Quasar one day. That was a comic that came out around 90. Atlantis Attacks, Famous Battles. This was a annual event that went, not meaning it happened annually, but throughout the annuals. The old Kree Skrull War. Look at there. That Giant Man, I think, is actually when Hawkeye did a stint as Giant Man in the Avengers. Wore a really weird costume. Nightmare representing, oh, look at here. Talk about rookies, the New Warriors. Now, this is a team that was made for the 90s. Speedball, Firestar, who actually came from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Night Thrasher, who was almost Marvel's answer to Batman, but you had Nova and Namorita, who was Namor's cousin, but then you had Vance Astro there, Marvel Boy, who would also appear with these guys, the Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, I know what you're thinking. These aren't Guardians of the Galaxy, Peter Quill and them. This is Guardians of the 90s. And speaking of, I don't know why Vance isn't there, but there he is with Night Thrasher. We'll take a sidebar from the cards really quickly to check out these Marvel Legends figures. I was really excited when I found out they were doing a Night Thrasher this past year, Marvel Legends wise, just because, I mean, look, New Warriors, heyday of my collecting. And I would never claim that Night Thrasher was one of my favorite characters. Look at the scratches on that skateboard like he's been riding rails and stuff. Really cool detail there. He's got his weight belt on. He was just geared for urban combat. It's the nostalgia of here's a team that I was there when they first made their appearance in the pages of Thor. And then this guy is Vance Astro. Let me try to redo. You know what? I'm going to reposition him into something a little more cool. And while we do that, let me say thank you to our Patreon supporters. If you're supporting us over on Patreon, we really appreciate you. Here's another thing I've learned in doing this. I've got to figure out how to do words on the screen where you may actually be able to read them better. As I was getting all these put in, I was so just blown away by how many of you support us and so thankful for each and every one of you who support us through Patreon. It means the world to me, and I just can't say thank you enough. So that's why we're featuring you here in this moment. And so thank you all for your support. So back to the figures here now. Now I've got him posed. This is kind of mimicking a pose that was done on actually one of the comic book covers. Why has he got Captain America's shield? Well, that's a discussion we're going to have about the Guardians of the Galaxy at a different time because, again, I didn't script this out. I'm just kind of randomly, when I filmed this, I was randomly doing things, and I'm like, well, I can say this, this, and this. I don't remember what I was going to say now. Love the paint. It's kind of metallic, except for his Guardians badge there. Yes, they had Guardians of the Galaxy badges in the 90s. So Night Thrasher and Vance, both on the same team, but also on different teams. Back to the cards here. Apocalypse. The art, I'll be honest with you, this first year art, I wasn't super blown away with, but it was the excitement of having trading cards because I'd gotten into baseball cards by this point. And I was doing strictly baseball. As far as sports goes, I wasn't doing any football or basketball. But then when Marvel cards come along, and then when they would reintroduce Star Wars with Star Wars Galaxy a couple of years later, that's another thing we'll have to go through. Here's one of those Spider-Man interviews again with Dr. Doom. He says, did you ever work as a real doctor? Who would go see a doctor named Doom? And then on the back, they continue the conversation as if Dr. Doom wouldn't just destroy Spider-Man. But this is classic Marvel humor. This is like almost right out of the mind of Stan Lee when you see these questions and the answers and you know, the little quick back and forth there. Famous battles, Daredevil versus Punisher, made more famous by the Netflix series Daredevil. There's the She-Hulk, Jennifer Walters. She'd be a fun character to kind of talk about. Old Dazzler. Dazzler was a disco girl back in the day. Captain Britain, the suited up Dr. Octopus in the 90s got a businessman style going. And I think we've talked about the Return of the Sinister Six before. It's one of my favorite story arcs from Spider-Man. Here's the Wasp. And most valuable comic, even back then, the first appearance of Wolverine. Now, Wolverine was really coming into his own during this time, and he has multiple cards in this set. Here's this particular one, and look what it says on the back. Wolverine, patch. You see the patch over his eye there. Why did Wolverine have a patch? I have no idea. I think he was just trying to be like his best friend Nick Fury at the time. But I love the idea. They're like, look, Wolverine, patch. Just like have more Wolverine versus Sabretooth, you know, again, classic battles. Mutant heavy around here with Magneto. And look at all the cards you got in one pack. But I got to be honest with you. I mean, it's cool looking through these, but I'm afraid that it's boring. I'm afraid it's boring to sit here and watch someone with big old meaty hands just go through cards. So one of the things that people like from the last video is Raining Figures. Raining Figures. There's also a need. Okay, so tripod and ethereal music for our Raining Star Wars figure sequences. I thought I'd be cool. I thought I'd be sharp and put this in slow motion so it would look all cool and everything. But again, with no tripod and trying to hold my phone as I filmed this, it just didn't work out very well, did it? But I like the effect of the Raining Figures as well. The problem is then I have to set them all up so you can see them. All right, fingers crossed that this next one won't be upside down, and it's not. And that was a wipe as an homage to George Lucas. We got a Jawa in here. This is not one of the Power of the Force Jawas. In fact, this is I think it was originally a Black Series Jawa, and it was what would go on the vintage carded Jawa. When they were re-releasing figures back in the first part of the 90s, well, the first time the re-release came along, they actually had a thing at the top of the head of the Jawa where light would filter through and it'd make his eyes glow. This Yoda, I believe, is what we would refer to as a Power of the Force green card Yoda. He may have even been in a first look card back with episode 1. With the first look at Yoda's episode 1, they had a little thing that you would pull the tab and you'd have Yoda now, and you pull a little tab and it was Yoda in episode 1. What makes me think that, and I believe he came with like a lamp accessory and a little pot, and of course his cane, but I think that was the only one they did with basically the, I don't want to say real hair, but you know what I mean there. It's not molded to his head. It's more of a soft goods type hair. Pretty good little face sculpt, you know. The 90s weren't known for the best figures at all, but you know, a lot of times the aliens and stuff, those figures would work out a little better than some of the human stuff. Sand Trooper. This is a Power of the Jedi Sand Trooper, I believe. Man, people love sand. I don't understand what people do, but look at the paint apps there where he's just like he's been out in the desert. But man, people loved the Sand Troopers for a while. Speaking of being out in the desert, this is a deleted scene Han Solo looking like a nerd with some big old glasses on. Excuse me, can you tell me how to get to Jabba's palace? Thank you. That's really what he's looking like there when you see him up close like this. My hands have not healed from being in the carbonite freezing chamber. They're stuck like this. That dude is a 90s. I don't know what you call him. He's a technician. He was the one carrying the scanning. He was part of the scanning crew. And then, of course, there's old Admiral Ozzel. He's as clumsy as he is stupid, apparently. And behind him is a spray-painted white C-3PO droid. That's Anakin from the She-Ra Princess of Power collection, with all the sparkly robes and everything. And, of course, the Emperor. This is pre-zombie Emperor. And that Boba Fett is an interesting figure. This was, I think, number 300. Actually, get your hand. Let me get Boba Fett in the shot, not my hand. Steve, get your hand out of the shot. This Boba Fett was, I think, number 300. It was packed as a number 300 figure. Really great figure. Not a lot of leg articulation, but he's got a great pose that once you get him stood up, you know, and get that gun put in his hand just right, it really is a great looking Boba Fett. Not a lot of play value, but a lot of display value. So, but it is hard to get him to kind of stand upright. You've got to work on him with two hands instead of one, and down goes Fett. Down goes Fett. Oh my gosh. In the words of Jim Ross, as God is my witness, he's broken in half, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. Trying to drop an elbow on the Emperor, but the Emperor's still standing. What is this, The Rise of Skywalker? That's an AT-AT driver. And he kicked over. Just kick over the Jawa, man. That's fine. You do you, Mr. AT-AT driver. One of the cooler looking, one of the first Stormtroopers with real color in him. And man, one of my favorite looking designs from all of Star Wars is the old Imperial Guard. Just so good. There was a Han in Stormtrooper disguise back there. And then I think that pilot back there, the X-wing slash snowspeeder pilot, is dead Dak. So if I just go out to the dune sea, yes, sir. Move along, move along. Thanks, guys. You know what? I can still talk. I'm just going to put the logo here, and that's what it'll be. So, no, seriously, thank you all so much for joining us. Hope you have a great New Year. And this is one of the things we want to get going this year as we approach the New Year. Some of you may or may not know that they've done in the past Star Wars cookbooks, and one of the things I'd really like to do, and I want to get the setup right to do it, is to part of this video thing is maybe cook through the Star Wars cookbooks. My wife is all about it. So that's probably going to happen. She'll really stay on me to do that. So that's probably going to happen. Other things would just be kind of like this video. I just kind of like the random, hey, let's stick something here in this little thing and film it and see what we got. There'll probably be a lot of looking at trading cards, maybe some comic books, Star Wars figures, Marvel Legends figures as I find some and put them out there. No telling what. I'm really having fun doing this, and I'll get it all worked out. I know there are people. I know there's some of you right now, and I'm looking at you, Stuffity, who are thinking, man, this guy doesn't know what he's doing, and why is he talking so soft? Because I'm uncomfortable. This is not a format with which I'm comfortable. But as we get comfortable, we'll do better. So thank you all so much for joining us. Hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment and like and subscribe and hit the notifications. I guess if this is on YouTube, I'm still not really sure how we'll put these out there, but we'll discover it together. It's going to be a great year of discovery in 2020. Talking about that 2020 focus, that 2020 vision. That's the last time you hear me say something cheesy like that. See you around the Golaverse, everyone.